Vanita. How are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, Jan. Good morning, everybody. I'm sure everybody's enjoying their long weekend in SA. It looks like it's everywhere, Jan. Everybody's had a bank holiday, Yeah, we haven't. But anyway.
Oh, well, we had Anzac Day in the middle of,
I
can I say
know.
nothing?
Yes,
Why
that's
would
right.
they put a public holiday in the middle of the week?
I don't know. Our Labor Day is in October, a long time away.
We'll just have to wait until that. We'll just take a few Fridays off. That's the other way around.
Yes, yes.
So let me just come in with any disclosures down here this morning. I'm not an immigration advisor. Please, guys, get that right. That's why we've got Vanita here. So, Vanita, what has been happening in the immigration field?
Okay, so we had a meeting with the minister. He had a meeting with the advisor community probably about 2 weeks ago. And that was interesting. He didn't obviously say much, but he did say or indicate that what they're planning to do this year is to have a more stable immigration system. So there's not going to be loads of changes like the way they were over the last 2.5 years, close to 3 years, which we've obviously had to keep up with and so on. So that's going to obviously settle staff and then obviously the processing and, as they sort of settle into the new system, or maybe not so new system anymore because it's nearly a year since they've had it anyway, and they've done a lot of changes. There'll be monthly maintenance on the system itself, which means that the system will be getting better and better. And as immigration themselves work through applications and so on, they'll be getting a bit more settled and, with everything. And we are seeing that coming through, especially with the accredited employer work visas, where there's standardization, where they're specifically asking, they want to see the skills and work experience and qualifications of the people applying for jobs. So the thing is, if you don't have the skills and qualifications, your work visa is probably not going to be approved, because the job check's one thing, which the employers are doing, and obviously whatever they say in that job check needs to match whatever the applicant's applying for.
So these people just popping out of university now that has got no experience will probably not find a job here.
Very likely, because obviously the aim is to bring skilled people, and that's what the minister stressed on. He also stressed on that they're trying to get the balance right, and that means that residency is not going to be for everybody. So that's something that people need to be very aware of. Now, at the end of this month, I think it's end of this month or June is when they are planning to announce the 6-point system that will replace the current 180 points under the skilled migrant category. It is a more streamlined point system, which
so it's better.
It's streamlined in the sense that it tells you straight away, if you don't have certain things, it's going to be very unlikely for you to have or get residence. That's the most important thing.
Just a question from my side on this. Would that still mean people have to live outside of Auckland, or is that off the table?
That's not in there. That's not in there at all. So the 6 points is pretty much, there's 3 branches to it. So for instance, if you've got occupational registration, then you've got a degree. And the other one is where you're earning like 3 times the median wage. Or if you're a tradesperson, for instance, and you may not have a qualification, you need to be earning 1.5 of median wage to be able to have a pathway to residence. But that 3 points or that 3 branches leads to either you're getting 6 points immediately. Like if you're a PhD student, you'll get 6 points immediately and you'll be able to apply. I think that's what it says. But if you're, for instance, like a tradesperson, you'll only get 3 points, and you've got to work another 3 years to get the 3 points. So that's where you get your 6 points. So what's happening is they are actually sort of saying, okay, you get maybe 5 points and you've got to work 1 year in New Zealand to be able to get your next lot of points, or the 1 point.
I've got a question. So that is could be the new criteria going forward. So two years in this, somebody has now got 3 points. He's got working towards the 3 years now. 2 years in this, they change everything.
I don't think they would change it, because the way they would do it is they'd give you enough notice, and those people that are already on their pathway usually should not be affected, because it will say from this date onward. So those people already, I mean, so we always say that they don't do retrospective changes. They have done some retrospective changes, but it has not been detrimental to anybody where they've lost their pathway to residence or anything like that. So that's quite important to remember. So I think when they announce it, look, I mean, I know that with our elections coming in October, everybody's thinking, oh, they're going to overturn the whole system. That's not necessarily the case. Coming back, and that's probably a good segue, is sector agreements. So what will happen is, so everybody talks about green list and they just throw this term around very willy-nilly. Let's just say that. There's different pathways to the green list, and not everybody has that pathway to residence on it, but it's okay, because there's other pathways to that.
Okay.
So with the green list occupations, you have the fast track occupations that they get residence between 6 and 8 weeks. It's that quick.
Okay.
And those are like your civil engineers, your quantity surveyors. They've got to meet the criteria of everything on that list to be able to do that. Then you have the tier 2 roles, which is like, for instance, your medical roles and so on. Even your caregivers, but they're earning a certain wage. I shouldn't actually cross that off. It's not the caregivers, but there's certain, like it's for instance like your diesel mechanics, I should say. So there's 3 trades under that pathway, and those trades are your auto. Sorry, I wrote this down, and those are your auto electricians, your diesel mechanics, your general electricians, and your plumbers. Okay, they have a 2-year pathway to residence, and that's your tier 2 green list roles. All right, and 2 of those roles already require New Zealand occupational registration. That's for your electricians and your plumbers. Okay. So they will wait 2 years and get that. And then you've got the highly paid people that are coming in, and they're earning 200% of median wage. And that's about 123,500 per annum.
Okay.
If you break that up. Okay. So those are your green list roles. Then you have roles where you've got any job. Okay. And those any jobs need to fall under the skilled migrant category, which is the points tested, which is currently 180, but will move to the 6 points later on. Okay. So that's that bit. And then we have the exception to median wage, where there's certain roles that are paid below median wage, but they don't have a pathway to residence. And then we have sector agreements.
Okay.
Now, an example of a sector agreement is your bus drivers, and you've obviously, and everybody's seen this, and it's a transport industry that's come in, and this is the new announcement that's been made. So we have several sector agreements. We've got travel and tourism and hospitality. We've got meat. We've got seafood, construction and infrastructure, and the care force. Now, those roles are paid below median wage, and they do have a stand-down period. There is an exception, so that means that after 2 years of working in New Zealand, you will have to leave and come back. You leave 12 months and then come back. But with the care force, they've made some exceptions, saying that if you're earning above median wage, you can actually stay for 3 years. You just got to apply for the 3-year work visa.
Okay.
So
but,
your bus.
So somebody like a bus driver, they can get residence after 2 years.
So what they've done is, with residents now in the sector agreement with your bus drivers, they've said that there's no stand-down period for them, so they can work. They can get a 3-year work visa, and they can apply for residence. They will have a pathway to residence. That just hasn't been announced as to how long that's going to be, but we're presuming it's going to be 2 or 3 years that they've got to work. Okay, and they are being paid, some of them lower than median wage, but they need to meet a certain criteria for that.
But once they get residence, they leave the bus driving, and that defies the whole purpose at the end of the day.
It does, and I'm not too sure. Look, I mean, I suppose there's no cap on that role of the bus drivers. So you're probably always going to get people, and just remember, sector agreements are going to change as time goes. So say, for instance, with the new election that we come in, say if we have a new government coming in, the new government could introduce more sector agreements, which allows more pathways to residents and so on. And a good example of that will be all the other trades that may not likely have a pathway to residents, but they are definitely needed in New Zealand to, to get the economy stimulated and so on. So you'll probably see a lot more of those coming through.
Yeah, I would just think that they could do something else, probably just have these guys work for 5 years until citizenship, but keep them working in that sector that ties them down to the sector.
Well, it's almost like then you're sort of exploiting them, isn't it? You're sort of saying to them, well, you're going to, we almost like keeping your passport, and I think that's not what we want to do. We want to say to them, look, if you can commit to 3 years or 2 years, then you will have this given to you if you can commit to that.
That's right. Yeah, well, I hope they've made up their mind 100% correctly on this. It could backfire, actually.
It could, but it's also giving people, that a pathway that really want to be able to come to New Zealand, they want to contribute and so on. So that's something that's there for people. We had an announcement yesterday about the parent category, and the first draw is going to happen next week on the 9th of May. I should say not the first draw, but there's 670 applications that they will draw from from the parent category, which has been closed, as you know, for a very long time. The interesting part is that they are looking at all those applications lodged before the 12th of October 2022. But the first draw is actually looking at applications lodged between November 2013 to June 2016.
Oh, okay. So these are older ones.
Yes, and that's why they've sort of said on the parent category, don't rush to put in an expression of interest because the pool lasts for 2 years.
Yeah.
But right now they're drawing as they were lodged. So this is going back to 2013. And it goes on and so if, say, for instance, if you've lodged a parent expression of interest in, say between 2021, November 2021 and October 2022, that draw is only going to happen in August 2025.
Okay.
So look, I suppose when you put your application in for your parents, you've got to that it's going to be sitting in there for 2 years, and you may have to actually re-put that application in or renew that application, or once it's coming for expiry, to be able to be in the draw. And just remember, they are kind of doing it like first in is the first draw that's going to happen. Okay.
So the ones from 2013, are they still valid?
That's why they've went out to everybody saying, are they still valid? Do you still want them? Do you want a refund? And so on. So a lot of people have actually done that. And so they've updated the applications and so on. There's also going to be a remuneration change for the sponsorship, and that happened on the 1st of May. So it's quite important to look to see what that figure is for sponsoring the parents as well. And how you can. Sorry?
Is that figure available yet?
It is available. So I put it on my Facebook page, and it is available, and it's on the immigration website as well. Yeah. Is there any questions, Jan, so far?
I've got one from Casper de Vries on the other channel asking, where is your teacher tiers?
So the teachers are sitting in the tier 2, and it's for secondary teachers. So also, coming back to that, if people are looking for a pathway to residence through the study route, there are specific occupations there that will grant them post-study work visas or post-study visas. So in other words, if your teachers, if you decide to come to New Zealand and study secondary school teaching, so if you want to study secondary school teaching, that's like a 3-year degree. That means that you will get a 3-year open work visa. Okay. And that means that, you've already got 3 years, and you've also got a degree, which comes back to the 6-point system, is that you can apply for residence after 6 years. So 3 years of studying, 3 years of working, you know, because that's where your bachelor's degree sits in, and that's how you'll be able to do that. So that's how they're looking at it. So the pathways to studying in New Zealand have changed. They've aligned it to the green list. So they've said, okay, here's the studying that we have. If you can commit to, for instance, automotive electrical engineering, which is like a diploma level or New Zealand certificate, and I think that's 2 years, then you can actually get a 2-year open work visa or post-study work visa, which will mean that you'll have a 2-year pathway to residence, which you may meet. Yeah. So that's what they've done. So they've aligned it that way.
There's a few more questions coming up. This one, if a candidate needs to work 3 years before applying for residency, would they need to redo their work permits, more job checks and tokens before applying for residency, as the visa is 3 years?
Most likely you would need to do that, and employers would probably will be very aware of this anyway. And if they do want to keep you in the, I mean, just remember those job checks are saying we want to apply for a migrant, and with those job checks comes a labour market test saying that there's still no New Zealanders in the market. If there are New Zealanders in the market, they are obliged to actually give New Zealanders the role first. So you do
3 years down the line lose your job.
You do stand the risk of that. That's correct, yes. And that's especially with any job.
Got to take it.
Yes, yes. So it's up to you. Do you want to actually, you know, there's that uncertainty, and we totally get that. And that's why that 6-point system actually is very clear. If you've got a degree, you've worked 3 years, then you are eligible, you know. So it's quite clear. Yeah.
Right. There's another one from the school, and we answered this. I'm on tier 2 as a secondary school teacher. From the green list, I read other teacher posts explaining that secondary school teachers may apply for residence in September 2023. In my case, I earn above minimum wage, and I arrived 2 weeks ago with my family as an assistant faculty leader of mathematics for a school in Auckland. I'm on the AEWV and would like to apply for residency as soon as possible.
So I think the dates where they say 2023, and if I recall previously, and this was like last year, they've said that if you can count your, if you were already in the country and you meet the criteria for these occupations, you can already count the time you've already been here earning the median wage and so on. I don't know with this person what your background is in terms of, or, I mean, you've said you've just arrived 2 weeks ago. There are teachers that have arrived a longer time, which will be eligible in September 2023 to apply because they've done their 2 years. So, so I don't know, and you probably need to work that out with somebody.
Another question coming up. If a person is sponsoring a parent as residency 6 months ago, should they put in the parent sponsorship application now if they are only being drawn in 2 years?
Yes, you can do that, exactly, and just monitor it, and you need to update that information before the draws are happening. So it would pay to actually go to the immigration website, see when those draws are happening, and they are saying they're going to be drawing quarterly as well. It's about 500 per quarter that they will draw. There is a cap, obviously, per year. They mentioned 500 per quarter, but I know the cap was 1,000. I think they've made some concessions, but they will adjust it. So it's worth looking at everything and going through and putting your expression of interest through.
Question saying, are you able to do a variation of conditions if you change jobs?
That's right. Yes, you can do that. So there's different types of changes that you can do. One is a job change if you're on an accredited employee work visa and you want to go to another employer that's accredited. That's a job change. If you're, for instance, on an essential skills work visa and you want to change occupations, you can do that, and that's a variation. So there's different things. Employers need to meet certain criteria, for instance, like to have a job token or whatever that may be. So it really depends on what's happening.
Okay. It's always interesting to talk to you regarding these things. I was just wondering, are we ready for the influx of another 1,000 people that's going to hit our medical or need help medical-wise and so forth, while we have a struggling medical situation currently in the country?
When you say 1,000, what are you talking about? 1,000? Sorry, I missed that.
Talking about the new parents coming in. Oh, that'll probably be too.
Look, they have different teams in immigration processing different applications. So Christchurch has 2 branches that process AEWVs.
Yep.
Obviously, the parent category does take longer than a work visa, and the team is different as well. So the team specialize in these. So
Yep.
yes, they will be ready for that.
All right. Another question coming up. When can you apply for PR after getting residency?
It's usually 2 years, and it's the difference between residence and permanent residence is only travel conditions. So what happens is your residence travel conditions expire after 2 years, so you need to apply for permanent residence. But on that, citizenship is counted from the date of residence being granted, not on permanent residence. So it's 5 years from the date of residence.
At the end of the day.
Look, everybody asks that question and so on. But talking about that, Jan, the Australians, as you know, announced that, and that's a big thing, okay? So what Australia's done is they've announced that, I think it's from the 1st of July, I'm seeing my J's up, is it the 1st of June or 1st of July? I can't remember. Sorry, it's too early in the morning and I haven't had coffee. I think it's June. They announced that New Zealand citizens living in Australia already for 4 years can apply for Australian citizenship. What that means is, okay, so let me explain. So as a New Zealand citizen, you can go to Australia. At the border, you apply for a subclass 444 visa. Now, what that means is you can live, work, contribute, get superannuation and so on. And that's no problem at all. But when you leave Australia, obviously, that 444, a subclass 444 visa falls away. It comes back when you arrive again in Australia, right?
Okay.
So now, with New Zealand citizens, you are not eligible for any student loans. If you wanted to apply, you can't apply for if you wanted to study. You are eligible as a New Zealand citizen to be a domestic student in Australia, but you cannot apply for a student loan.
Okay.
Also, you're not eligible for the first home subsidy. You are eligible for medical care and so on, but there's just a few minor things that New Zealand citizens are not eligible for. And when COVID hit as well, they weren't eligible for that job seeker benefit that all Australian citizens or permanent residents got because they weren't, you're on the subclass 444. So now what Australia has done is they've said apply for citizenship after 4 years, those that are already there for 4 years, and you'd be eligible for all these things. And that's the difference between being a New Zealand citizen versus an Australian citizen. Now, I do get the question from permanent resident or resident visa holders, can I go to Australia? Okay.
Yeah.
If you're on residence, the advice from me is you wait for your permanent residence so you can return to New Zealand at any time. But going to Australia on permanent residence holds or New Zealand permanent residence holds no weight. You need a visa, depending on your passport, you need a visa to live in New Zealand long term.
Okay. Yeah, we're losing a lot of people to Australia. And
the salaries, look, it is what it is, and the salaries are higher and so on, and the cost of living is obviously more manageable than what it is, and houses are cheaper. Yeah. And I suppose people feel that they can get ahead in Australia. But Australia also has its problems. And if you follow the Australian news, there's crime that's an issue with what's going on. There's things. So you've got to weigh up where do you want to live, So that's really what it is, yeah.
Now, I know of quite a few South Africans that has now left New Zealand, gone over to Australia.
Yeah.
Where one of the two, the husband or the wife, they've got the job that side, but the other person can't find a job.
Right.
So they're basically worse off down there than they were here.
Yeah, and I suppose only when you go and you see for yourself, then you go, actually, the grass is not greener. But that's what any country, it looks, when you live somewhere, and you're despondent about something, everything else looks great, And just to let the audience know, I am licensed for Australia as well, so that's why I can speak to that as well. Yeah.
I've got a case study here for you. Let's call it that. I'm a pastor with a bachelor's degree in theology. What will my pathway to residency be?
Well, if you look at the new proposed 6-point system that's coming through, it says bachelor's degree. Okay, it doesn't define what bachelor's degree that is, and it obviously has to be recognized in New Zealand. Then it means you have to work, and that's a level 7. It means that you get 3 points, and then it means that you have to work in that particular profession with your skills and so on for another 3 years to be able, or I should say 3 years, and that's your pathway to residence.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got 3 points just by having a bachelor's, and works another 3 years.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. The employer would need to sponsor them in terms of having the accredited, job check and so on. Yeah, it's all the same process.
Another question coming up. It says, does my partner need the English test if I am the main applicant to apply for residency? If so, what English test do you suggest him to do?
So right now, with the new 6-point system, we don't have the definitives about having an English test for the partners. But on the green list, any job as well, and English test is required for everybody. The partner needs to meet the criteria. I think it depends what English test they do. There's different criteria involved, and I would suggest that the partners do the easier one, which is the general rather than the academic. Now, one thing I needed to mention is the working holiday visas. There's been some changes to that, and I know some South Africans hold UK passports and so on, and I think it's quite important for them to know there's through, I think it's in June, for UK passport holders as well as Canadian passport holders. Now, you have to be between the ages of 18 and 30, and some countries 35. You've obviously you can't bring your family and so on. There's criteria involved in that which you need to look at. So anyway, previously we allowed them to come for 12 months on a working holiday visa. They couldn't take a permanent job. They could only work for 11 months of that time and then apply for another 12 months or 12 months for the next working holiday visa. But the changes that are coming through allows them to be able to apply for a 36-month working holiday visa, and it allows them to take a permanent job as well.
All right.
So those are for UK and Canadian citizens. Holders, yeah, passport holders.
Even if they're South African citizens, but they've got UK or Canadian passports.
Yes, and you can travel on the UK passport or the Canadian passport and apply for the working holiday in that sense.
All right. Question from the other channel, Francine Jansen from Rensburg, asking, are truck drivers seen in this as the same as bus drivers class 4 and 5?
Right now, they mention truck drivers, but there's no clarification around that. So we don't know what those pathways are. There's going to be more announcements around the transport industry coming through. Okay. I suppose we just need to wait to see what those truck drivers are, because I think in December we mentioned bus and truck drivers, but right now they only mentioned bus drivers getting a 3-year work visa on the sector agreement and having a pathway to residence. So that's to come.
My thoughts is just a truck driver can become a bus driver as well, huh?
I don't know. I can't answer that, seriously.
I was just thinking, it's a big thing, you drive it, it's up and down.
I don't know.
I would rather sit in a bus the whole day than one of these log trucks coming over the Kaimais.
Yeah.
So, all right. I don't see any other questions at current stage. So
okay.
We've got about another 3 minutes left. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How's it going with the new position?
It's very busy. It's exciting. Okay. It's very busy. We do get we obviously are able to talk to immigration and the policy team around changes or potential changes we would like to have for our industry. So that's really good. Obviously, I've lodged a lot of visas, and with regards to approvals, and I know a lot of people sort of want to know about this because they say, oh, why is it taking so long and so on. It's neither here nor there. It's either approved, very quickly, or it takes time. And for whatever reason, it just takes time. So I've had very long days, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it, Jan. I am.
No, that's good. That's good. Just people ask if they can contact me. I'll pop my email down a bit later. Let's see, another one popped in. Thanks so much for all the info. Really appreciate that. I think this was probably the best one. You guys are awesome. Thank you for all the help. Yes, blessed weekend.
Oh, Jan, one very important thing. There are changes, and this is something I'm supposed to talk about. Sorry, my apologies. Partner work rights. That is definitely, well, I would say, look, I'll hold a disclaimer, but I think it's definitely happening on the 31st of May. So if you are lodging your AEWV, please make sure you lodge your partner's visas now, okay? With the partner work rights, those people that are on the green list, and that's fast track or straight, fast track tier 2 or the highly paid, their partners will get open work rights, no problem on that. Those people are applying for any jobs. It all depends on whether their partners are going to be eligible for a work visa or not. Okay. And when I say any jobs, I'm talking about, for instance, jobs that may require occupational registration and so on. So you need to work with that. Those people that are on sector agreements, their partners will not get open work visas. They are going to have visitor visas. Those
type of people.
Yes, and those people that are paid below median wage, and those are your sector agreements again, like your construction workers and so on, their partners are going to get visitor visa rights. Now, that does not stop their partners from applying for work visas in their own right. It means that they have to, the employer will have to do a job check, and they would apply for a work visa as an accredited employer work visa holder. So that's where that is. So that's very important. Please know that and know the deadline and put your applications in as soon as possible. On the children, though, or the families that they are supporting, like bringing children in and they are school-aged going, children, and that's 18 and below, the main holder of the work visas for any of those categories will be able to support their children to be able to go to school on domestic fees. Okay, so that's a difference. It's the partner that changes.
I think this is probably due to what you're saying now. If you've already applied for your open visas, however, still waiting for them, probably meaning, are we safe?
Yes, I would believe so, because those changes are happening from the 31st of May, and that's the indication that immigration have given. And that's probably the reason why they've announced so many health roles going on to the green list and so on, because all those people on those green lists, like health roles, like the 31 roles and so on, they will all have open work visas, but it's all those other people that won't be able to. So I believe you are safe, because we're still lodging partner visas and so on now, and trying to get in before that.
All right. Okay, I think we've gone a bit over time, but not too much. So we'll let the people go to work, those that do have jobs already. So
real jobs.
Once again, thanks for your help this morning.
Thank you.
It
was my pleasure.
Yeah, it's always nice to talk to you. You're one of the leading faces of South Africans that are changing New Zealand, so thanks for that.
Yes. All the best, guys.
All right. Guys and girls, thanks. Same time, same place next week. See you all.